Good evening, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to our event, MSc Cyber Summit. We're all here today to discuss cyber and how to stay safe online. I'd like to thank our speakers who came here today and our principal, Nikki Kostas, Josh Earl and John Cameron, our teachers, for helping us make this event possible.
But first, we would like to acknowledge the land that we meet on today as the traditional land of the Kaurna people, and that we pay respect to their spiritual relationships with the land. We also pay respect to their elders past, present, and emerging. Now we have Nikki, our principal, to say a few words.
Thank you, Connor. Welcome, everyone. I'm really pleased to see you all here. This is such an exciting event for us. Totally student-led and co-designed MSc Cyber event, where our students will be showcasing their talent for cyber and all things involved, as well as some fantastic support from the industry. And a big shout out to Josh, who has, very much facilitated this event for us tonight. And I know that it will be a great success and certainly very informative for the students that are here, and a real opportunity for our students to showcase their talents, not only in cyber and the skills, but also their ability to be collaborators, communicators, working teams, and actually have a project and competing demands and having to think about different perspectives and bringing it all together so that they can actually present this event for us tonight. And certainly I know from the industry and from the university and department that these sorts of capabilities will place our students really well to be successful in cyber, because we know that's a constantly changing landscape. And also want to shout out to Thomas, who has been in the classroom from the department working with the students and taking on the role of teacher. And I know that Karen McPhee has been a strong advocate for cyber here at Marden. So thank you again, and thank you to everyone who's been involved in the success of this evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Nikki. We would appreciate it if you could all turn your phones on silent. The restrooms are that direction. And in case of an emergency, we will all leave through the exit, when we entered, and follow Nikki's instructions.
And with that out of the way, my name is Jinx, this is Silva, and this is Connor. Our class has been working hard on this event with the help of Thomas, Josh, John, and our principal, Nikki. None of this could have happened without them.
And a big thanks to the rest of the class for working so hard to get this event up and running.
In this class, we've learned about many things. For example, we use Hack the Box to learn basic coding skills. We have investigated threat actors and the tools they use to infiltrate networks. We've also done a research project on malware and other cyber threats. This semester, we've been working on some micro-credentials through Cisco and putting together this event for you all, which has been a great experience.
To make things clearer, we are going to divide this into two parts. The first half will be careers and job opportunities here in South Australia, while the second half we'll dive into tools and resources. And now we have Peter Crescitelli here, the Director of Cybersecurity at the Department of Education. Over to you, Peter.
Thanks very much, everyone. It's great to be here along with my colleagues from the department as well as industry, talking to you a little bit about cybersecurity and the careers and cyber safety. And thanks very much for the students for putting on this event. So firstly, I'd just like to talk a little bit around cybersecurity career, why there's a consideration or why there's some interest by yourselves in cybersecurity. Some real world scenarios which I'm sure most of you have heard in the media at some point over the past 12 months or so. Career pathways, talking a little bit about the skills and qualities within cybersecurity resources that we see and as an employer that we look for as well. The cybersecurity team at the Department for Education will talk a little bit about what those resources look like as well, and what we collectively do for the Department of Education. So, why consider a career in cybersecurity? I'll probably go back to my path in the first instance. I've been working in IT roles for about 20 years, so personally I never started off at wanting a career in cybersecurity. Certainly many years ago, there were IT courses which could be done, and IT was probably the only thing I was actually good at in high school back in the day, so it was very easy for me to progress into IT-related studies, which I did at Adelaide TAFE and then to Flinders University. But cybersecurity, I think for most of us in industry, is something that probably over the past 5+ years we've evolved into. So it's always been a factor in all things IT security, but it's become a little bit more prevalent over the past two years or thereabouts. Particularly with what we see in the media, the more there are data breaches and public exposures, that obviously brings awareness and certainly a lot of interest for students to get involved and start asking questions around how they can play a part in cybersecurity. But in saying that, there is a lot of demand for cybersecurity roles, entry level right through to senior level, management level, across varying industries. So my career's spanned private and public sector. I first started in the government, it's been about 2.5 years now, but prior to that it was private sector. And cybersecurity can be applied across any industry really, but there are different types of industries where there's probably a little bit more focus on cybersecurity, particularly those industries where it's seen as critical infrastructure. So your likes of telecommunications, hospitals, industries that are providing critical services to the community. And certainly government plays a big part of that as well. In our response to, certainly manage the health agencies and infrastructure, energy and water. And look, over a period of time, you can certainly build up to certainly get more experience. The average starting salary, I think, is about 75, although I think it's a little bit more now. It can quite quickly, depending on your experience, you can move up the chain pretty quickly. I can give you an example of a few trainees that we've onboarded over the past couple of years. It's my time in education. They initially just started with a Certificate 4 in IT. They did some work experience with us. They reached out to MEGT, who took them on as trainees. And then they worked with us for a couple of years, and then after those 2 years, we've now provided them a full-time job within government. And that's not just within education. There's certainly programs of work across government where we look to deploy cybersecurity roles across varying agencies, and that's done through our fellows at OCIO. In terms of those real-world scenarios I spoke about, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, I think. So certainly for the company that gets breached, it's concerning. But what it actually does on the other side of things, it actually creates awareness for industry, for other organisations, particularly around, identifying how these companies were breached or how data was stolen from malicious actors. Medibank was probably the caveat to that. It was probably I think it was at the time, still is to an extent, the worst data breach in the history, where there were medical records, patient records, sensitive information that was stolen. And that ultimately is what, when you work within cybersecurity, you're protecting. So you're protecting the digital assets of that organisation. You're protecting the sensitive information that if that information was accessed by the wrong people, on the wrong hands of some, then it can actually disrupt and completely void the organisation itself. So in my previous role before, I was at the Department of Education. I was head of technology for a medical insurance company, and the biggest or the most sensitive information that we needed to protect there was the reputation of doctors and midwives and patient records, right? So if that information was stolen, then you're essentially ruining the reputations of doctors out there, and that more broadly in the sense of an organisation. Cybersecurity, if it's not done well, if there's limited governance, then certainly has the ability to completely render organisations financially and reputationally. And I think maybe back to the tune, I think there was over $100 million of loss in the end, back to recover or the investment that they needed to ensure those systems were back on track, along with all the other varying administration costs that came with that breach. So career pathways. Here are just some examples of some types of cybersecurity roles. There's a bit of a perception that cybersecurity roles require technical capability and ability. Within my team, so we've got a team of 7 staff. There's varying levels of capability in terms of technical understanding and awareness, right? So we have our security operations centre analysts who's responsible for looking at incidents and alerts and threat hunting and managing monitoring alerts that come in through various devices across our network. We have governance, risk and compliance, so you'll see the acronym GRC come up a fair bit, which stands for governance, risk and compliance. And that role is particularly making sure that cybersecurity governance aligns to industry best practice, ensuring that there's policies and procedures, ensuring that there are compliance guidelines and meeting standards as such, which are quite often set out within government by a central office, OCIO. Equally, depending on which industry you do find yourself in, there are always standards and guidelines and compliance to an extent that need to be abided by. For example, in financial services, there's the APRA regulation, CPS 234 in particular. So that does require a fair bit of organisation. It's not the ultra sexy type role in cybersecurity GRC, but it's certainly a fundamental role for the cybersecurity team. And then on the flip side of that as well, I've got Rosika and Michelle, who you'll speak to shortly. They came from schools, so Rosika and Michelle worked in the Wellbeing space out of primary school and found themselves into the cybersecurity team at the office. And they'll probably be the first ones to tell you that they're not technical at all, but they play a fundamental part in building awareness out in schools, making sure that we can get in front of teachers, students like yourselves to raise awareness, and that's fundamental to our cybersecurity strategy. So there's all varying types of roles within cyber, but I think if you're looking at the most traditional one of, hunting the bad guys and understanding what's coming through in terms of incidents and alerts, then certainly a SOC analyst would be your start, and then working your way out from there. But certainly keep an open mind when it comes to cyber. If you are technical focused, then having a solid understanding of networking is probably a good place to start. And then doing a lot of self-learning along the way as well is really important. Skills and qualities. There's a lot here to unpack, but I think fundamentally it starts with having a purpose of why you'd like to continue a role or start a role, in cybersecurity. I think from my perspective, it was about helping people back in the day. So taking on that, that IT help desk role was, having a problem-solving mindset is really important. And that's critical across all things IT, cybersecurity, and having a sense of purpose where you're wanting to protect the digital assets or the information of people within these organisations. I mean, that's fundamentally why I play a part, and a lot of my counterparts and colleagues in cybersecurity share the same vision, that we're here to, protect the community, certainly working in government, that's the case. Equally in other industries as well, you're there to protect the well-being of customers and sensitive information that the organisation may hold. I think what's really important as well is whether it be a career in cybersecurity, any career really, is just having those soft skills as well. The ability to communicate with your peers, have an understanding of how the business works. That's fundamental, and it might not be really obvious when you start your first job, but over your career, having an understanding of how a business operates and what actually drives them is what's going to help drive you and deliver value to your role and to the team that you work within. And look, certainly building networks, reaching out to industry partners, speaking to your teachers, speaking to family members that may be in the industry, building out those networks is really important. And then, yeah, certainly, like I said, that problem-solving mindset. So you might start a career in IT, or it might not specifically be a cybersecurity role, it might be an IT role. But having that problem-solving mindset certainly helps with cybersecurity roles that come with that as well. So the cybersecurity team, I mentioned earlier, I think, yeah, 7, it fluctuates between 7 and 8 depending on what trainings we've got in, but we essentially are supporting the Department of Education, which is about 950 sites across the state. It's about 250,000 staff and students, so it's about 15% of the state's population, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. Geographically dispersed, of course, so we've got APY lands, schools that to get to you have to catch a plane to Alice Springs and then drive back into the state for 6 hours to get to our furthest school. And the way in which my team is largely into those 3 key areas which I spoke about. So incident detection and response is where we've got a handful of SOC analysts. They are largely responsible for looking at the incident alerts that are coming through our anti-malware service, as well as the information that OCIO, our central government agency, provide us, and monitoring those devices for threats, and certainly addressing vulnerabilities as they appear. Governance, risk and compliance, we have one resource at the moment. Her role is largely establishing and monitoring the cyber risk register and communicating those risks out to other directors or other business units, ensuring that we're complying with standards set out by government. So the South Australian Cyber Security Framework is one, along with other industry frameworks as well. And then the Security Awareness and Resiliency team, which is Rosica and Michelle, again, largely responsible for cyber security awareness at the schools and having those discussions with site leaders and principals around why cyber security is so important collectively across the community as well as our schools. Our schools have a varying level of cyber security maturity, and we certainly want to focus on those schools that probably aren't in the areas where there's a significant budget, and obviously the ones which don't have on-site IT support, for example, we certainly want to target those where we can. They're also responsible for our awareness and training program. So recently we've deployed cybersecurity awareness for our staff, and we certainly want to extend that to students in the future, as well as establishing a cybersecurity health check, which is a series of questions, I think 20 questions or so, which is basically just yes or no answers. But what that actually allows us to do is to get an understanding of where schools need support. So that all information comes back to us centrally, and then we can target schools that we need to provide support with from a cybersecurity perspective. That's it from me. I'll throw over to my colleague Rosica to have a bit of a chat. Or, sorry.
Thank you, Peter. Next up, we're going to have Pratap, who works in cyber awareness and well-being from the Department of Education. I'll hand it over to you, Ross.
Thank you.
Just fit to my section.
I think Peter's already explained briefly how I've come to be part of the team. I'm an educator for about 20 years. I've got the 20-year certificate, which I'm very proud of. And for 10 of those years, I've been in a school counsellor or a wellbeing role. So I have spent a significant amount of time in the wellbeing area as well. I work very closely with my colleague Michelle. We've both actually worked together previously at a school, and she has an amazing background around school admin and also has a audit background as well. So between us, I think we cover the schools really well. I joined the department in 2020, just before COVID, and joined the team really to provide some wellbeing, I guess, perspective and support in Swift. Swift is a filtering tool that also supports student wellbeing. And I think Nikki was saying that the school has that, which is fantastic. It's a very proactive tool. An element of my role that I absolutely love, being an educator, is coming out to career expos and nights like this, where I can actually talk with students and look at, the training and, what they're actually doing on the ground, because I am quite removed at the moment from that in my role. So we're going to pivot a little bit and move to part of my role, which is going out to schools and doing all those amazing things that Peter has said, but also working and providing information and awareness on online safety and wellbeing. Before I go any further, the PowerPoint that Peter and I have put together is actually available for anyone that wants to access it. There is a QR code at the end, so if you use the QR code, I promise we're not trying to push you. So you can use that, and it's got all of our resources, because I am a cyber geek, but I'm also just naturally a geek, so I'm also studying psychology, so there's a lot of research and links throughout the presentation as well that you can peruse at your leisure. So how many people have seen this document? Excellent. I like that all the cyber people have. This is the Australian Cybersecurity Strategy, which our former Minister for Home Affairs and Minister for Cybersecurity, Claire O'Neill, worked on providing a strategy for Australia. Where Michelle and our role sits in is in Shield 1 under Strong Businesses and Citizens. So getting out to schools and communities and having these conversations helps build that cyber aware culture that we're really looking for. Now, when I was asked to present on online safety and wellbeing, I put on my current role and my wellbeing role and as a mum. So these are questions that I get asked commonly when we're out at schools, but also questions that I as a parent ask as well, mostly to my children, and I don't really get a good answer from them. But these are questions that I generally do ask. There is information that I'm going to cover, and it's by no means an extensive list. So there are obviously, and there's nothing that I'm going to cover that you haven't come across, especially in the media around this as well. My key takeaway, and this is the educator in me straight away with the outcome, my key takeaway for anyone in here is, I like that people are, is if you take anything away from this, please go and visit the eSafety Commissioner's website. It has a wealth of resources for both parents and students around how to navigate the cyber landscape. There's webinars that I attend, there's information for teams as well around your platforms that you're on, how to report on those platforms, etc. Oops. Okay, so what are teens spending most of their time online doing? Or where are teens spending most of their time online? Okay, so YouTube continues to be the top platform amongst teens, followed by TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram. This is research that's the most recent research that's come from US, and this is also replicated here in Australia as well. We can see that YouTube and TikTok and Snapchat are on the decline from 22 to 23, but you'll see that Be Real
And Reddit seems to be on the increase as well. And I know my 16-year-old daughter, she's always like, Mum, let's do Be Real. I'm like, no, I am real. I don't need you to upload that. Just out of interest, for us in the age bracket of 16 to 65-year-olds, we're still trending alongside our teens, so that's good to see. TikTok for us is number 1, followed by YouTube. And I know I'm not on TikTok personally, but I am on Insta, so I do see the TikTok reels as well, mostly for like pumpkin arch garden things that I'm interested in. So where are our teens spending most of their time online? This is really interesting from a user-based growth perspective. I found it interesting because this looks at the time it's taken to reach 100 million users. Insta took 2.5 years, and we've got ChatGPT 2 months. That is huge. That's a significant growth that completely blew my mind. This research is from the Resilience Project as well. So what are teens doing online? This research is from eSafety, and it's the most recent research. This was a survey that was conducted with 627 teens, 12 to 17-year-olds, researching things that interest me. I know my teens are on there researching things that interest them, and it's usually on a reel or Insta or something like that. Not very dissimilar to their mum. I love that listening to music is on there because there's a positive association with listening to music and well-being. So from a well-being perspective, for me, that was a huge highlight. How much time are teens spending online and when? So again, from eSafety, we're seeing that our teens are spending about 14 hours per week online. I can corroborate this because I did have a look at my daughter's screen time as well. We had a really interesting discussion around 2 days on screen time is probably not the best use of her time. And this is outside of learning platforms as well, so outside of school hours. And this research was from the Resilience Project, which surveyed over 30,000 students. Resilience Project, there's a podcast of the same name, amazing podcast, and an amazing program that looks at building resilience in our young people. And I found it really interesting. If you look at the time, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., this is self-reported from these groups of students. So a quarter of our primary students online at that time, and not far behind for our secondary students. So what impact does having being online have? So with anything, there is that real need to have a balance online, offline balance, basically. So you can see there are a lot of educational benefits. There are digital skills benefits, supporting our students to build those digital skills, to navigate the cyberspace, and also to help with their careers. The social connection is a huge one, around being able to socially connect with our peers that we normally wouldn't be able to do because perhaps we have social phobias and things like that. And then we've got the self-actualization, which is hierarchy, Maslow's hierarchy's top tier, which is where you actually get to realize and identify and have that sense of purpose and belonging that you talk to, that we all seek as humans. From an education perspective, we went out to Illumination last year and we talked to them about the VR technology. They shared a really amazing story with us where they had students in APY lands that were able to use the VR goggles to then be able to look at what it actually feels like to be at the beach. They were able to hear the waves, see the sunshine glistening on the water, all of those amazing things that we take for granted, but they were actually able to use VR goggles to do that as well. While I was there, I also was able to see what I would have used in a primary school, which was able to see animals in their natural habitat, and then to support that learning to better understand how animals naturally behave in their habitat as opposed to at the zoo. So there are also risks with being online as well. And like I said, this is, things that you have probably come across yourselves in media and through classes as well. There's content risk, and that's around exposure to inappropriate content. I had a stat from eSafety that said 52% of men and 32% of women had reported viewing pornography by the age of 14, which is a huge number of people. And then there were also stats around even younger students accessing online content that they're just not ready for. That's not developmentally appropriate for them as well. And we've seen lots of Tom Cruise deepfake videos, and then, there's a few of them doing the rounds. So deepfake is a real issue for our students as well. We've seen in the media around incidents in other states with students and deepfake and how much impact that can have as well. From a conduct perspective, cyberbullying is a huge risk, which I do know that part of the Keeping Safe curriculum, we as educators, we are mandated to teach that. So that, helps me breathe a sigh of relief as a parent that is something that is being taught. Digital footprint is a really interesting one, and it's one that relates really well to cybersecurity because we have young children that don't have necessarily a big digital footprint like we do as adults. So it's really important about teaching them how to conduct themselves online appropriately so that they have a positive digital footprint. Because when you do apply for jobs, I got a friend of mine had applied for a job, and I asked her how it was going, and she said, I'm waiting on my the interviewers to actually do a social media screening. And I was like, wow. So that's an actual thing that happens. So it's really important. I can see Michael's nodding away. So that's an actual thing that can happen. So it's really important to be mindful of our digital footprint. Contact risk. So that's around your online predators, grooming, identity fraud. And then contract risks. So more to do with the cyberspace. This one was interesting for me because my 16-year-old liked a page. A couple of days later, she got a message and she, clicked on the link, put in her username, password, whatever. 3 days later, she couldn't even get into her Insta, and this message started coming through. So we had to go through that process and report it to the platform, eSafety. And then we had a really important conversation about, phishing isn't just emails. You can get scammed on your social media platforms as well. So how can we support our child's digital wellbeing? So we are our children's biggest protective factors and role models. So it's really, for me, I know it was really important when I was putting this together with Michelle to really reflect on my digital wellbeing and really look at practicing self-awareness. I was checking my screen time. Earlier I talked about checking my daughter's. We compared ours and we had a really interesting conversation about it. This one, narrating what you're doing on your phone, is an important one that I know Michelle certainly, is a point that that she, we like to make, is that when we're on our phones, we're not just looking at Insta, we're actually looking at maps on how to get to places, we're banking, we're emailing. So sometimes it's, important to just say, we're actually doing this. And the second to last point around sharing personal information, again, this ties back to digital footprints of our children. So it's really about being mindful of how much information we're sharing about our young people, because we're creating a digital footprint for them when they don't have one. And in the world of cybersecurity, when I was at a conference last week, we talked about how each identity is worth $250 on the dark web. So that's, and quite an identity that doesn't have a lot of digital footprint is quite lucrative as well. So how can we promote family digital wellbeing? So it's around having that open communication, being respectful digital citizens. For me as a parent and as a teacher, it's around making sure that you are respectful online, but you are also having conversations around what sort of respect you expect. So it's that old saying around, treat others and, like how you want to be treated. It's the same one that I talk to my children about. And I'm like, if someone is excluding you or locking you out of a chat group or whatever, think about your worth and think about the respect you're expecting as well. The family online safety contract, I've printed this a few times and I'm guilty of not actually filling it through, but I have got it on tables across my kitchen and stuff so my kids can have a look at it. But there are quite an extensive, a few different ones around, and we have links for that in the at the end as well. But it does help me to set time limits, talk about, especially with my teens, around if you're going to take a photo of your siblings, you're making a reel, which my daughter loves doing because they're always doing their hand stuff. I'm like, you're not posting it. There's no posting of our stuff on social media, and she just downloads the videos and things like that. And setting up parental control. So there's quite an extensive list of resources on the eSafety Commissioner's website around tools to block, filter and limit access for your young people as well. And also mobile devices have those tools as well. Gaming consoles, I know my son got locked out, which was yay, I know for him. But I'm like, yeah, it's working. And then from a cybersecurity perspective, it's around making sure that your privacy, personal information and personal safety is looked after as well. So we have quite an extensive conversation in our family all the time around sharing personal information, to the point where we sometimes argue about not actually having your first name on your social media accounts. It's, you know, pseudonyms or nicknames and things like that. And, you know, kids have FOMO, so they're like, well, how are people supposed to know it's me? And I'm like, that's the point. They're not. It's about protecting your identity as well. And with respect to passwords, the advice around there being passphrases and not passwords, Michelle has put together a couple of examples of how secure is your password. There is a password strength link there that you can actually go and check. And we do, when we go out to schools, we actually have this set up on computers and get students to play around with it as well. And if nothing else, please report, report, report. Like I said, I went through that process with my daughter, so report it to the website. The eSafety guide has all of the apps in there that you can go to, and it will actually show you how to report to that website. Once you have reported to that website and nothing's been done or the content hasn't been taken down, then you need to report to eSafety Commissioner. And then the last link there is around online crime, so reporting it to cyber.gov.au, and if it is a cybercrime, obviously the police. So this QR code will take you to all of these resources, and it will take you to additional resources that Michelle has put together, so including our cybersecurity brochure, but there's also a newer one that Michelle has created, which is looking at all of the different career pathways and in-depth look at what those actually are. Thank you.
Thanks, Roz. Now we have some time for a Q&A if anyone has any questions for Peter or Roz. If you have a question, please raise your hand and one of the errand boy will come over with a mic shortly.
Thanks for that presentation. Is ChatGPT a tool that's safe for school students to use?
Question. Check. That's a good question, and I think it's got to be careful with the answer here because we do have, well, the department has its own ChatGPT equivalent, which most of you may have seen in the publicly as well as across communications, called EdChat. EdChat is a ChatGPT equivalent for staff and student use. At least it's going through a proof of concept evaluation at the moment. And the difference being is that the information that EdChat captures through student prompts is contained locally within Australian data centres and within the department's own security confines, whereas ChatGPT, any prompts put into that system or that language model will go back to overseas and into the hands of potentially companies that you don't know where it ends up. So that's part of the reason why the department encourage the use of EdChat, and we understand that it's in its infancy at the moment, but there's certainly plans to extend that more broadly across the department. However, we do know that students will obviously go on to ChatGPT after hours, and I think it's really just being mindful of information that they're putting in there and ensuring that there's no personal information or anything specific that may be too sensitive putting into that language model.
Hi, this is a question for Rizika. I think in part of like your speech and stuff, you talked about like sharing things. What's sharing?
So that's basically your parents sharing online. So it's a combination. It's like malware, so they've just shipped those two words together. That's sharing to your parents, sharing to
Okay, so next up we have Kostas Theodosi, who's a business development manager for Insync Solutions. So we will move the tables. Get mics.
Move the table to excellent. I'll wait till they're finished. All right. Thank you everyone for bringing me along, inviting me along today. We've heard some great speakers from earlier, and look, a lot of good information there, and hopefully some of my information will be overlapping and repeated as well. So it means we're all in line and we know what we're doing in this industry, which is great. Being a YouTuber as well, for me, knowing that YouTube is at 95% of the viewing is brilliant. So I'm very pleased about that as well. But look, yes, my name is Kostas Theodosi. I am a cybersecurity consultant, and I work for an Adelaide-based company called Insync Solutions. So we have been operating for over 20 years. I've worked 18 years in this company. So cybersecurity for me is very important, but my specialty is really around identity and access management. So a little bit different, and just going on what Peter was saying earlier about different pathways in cybersecurity. There's different avenues and areas that you can certainly go to and experience. So it's not just all about hacking or penetration testing or threat hunting and all that kind of stuff. That's a very, very specialized area. There's a lot of generalist areas in cybersecurity as well, which is great, a lot of fun, and you can move around. So I know a lot of people associate cybersecurity with hacking. Well, that's a lot of the kids that we work with. A lot of the trainees are like, when can I break into a system, or when can I do this? It's like, well, you'll get there, but you need to know the basics around networking and a few other stuff as well. So look, I have worked in this industry for over 20 years, being from a technical standpoint, doing especially as identity and access management. And what that is provisioning your identity, managing your identity. Your identity is everything these days. You sign online to things and you do things all the time with your identity, and you put it out there. So we need to secure it and make sure it's got access to things that you need and not have access to things that you don't need. So all of that and automation is wrapped around all of that to manage you as a person, because you are a person and you have a digital representation of yourself online, at the school, as an adult, in any way, shape or form. As soon as you sign up to something, you get an identity. So we have to protect that. So again, that's my specialty. I've moved into a business development manager role. Again, started from a trainee, and I'll get into that a bit later. But also, along the way, I never really knew about cybersecurity. I didn't know what it was. It wasn't a thing back then for us. It was IT or ICT or just technology, building servers, building computers. That's where I started as a trainee. But I never knew what this was about in high school. Like I was year 12, didn't do very well at year 12. I didn't know where to go. So it was either do year 13 again back then, or it was also go to university. My parents, go to uni, go to uni, go to uni. I didn't understand a lot of the pathways that are available now that we had back then. It just didn't exist. So going into cybersecurity where it is now, for me was, I wanted to be a dancer. So that was my thing. I didn't think I had the capability to be in IT. I like playing with the toys and the tech and all the rest of it, but I didn't think I had that mindset. English was a second language for me as well. So again, a lot of these things and information that's around, it can be very overwhelming for someone and thinking, oh, I need to be a genius to be in cybersecurity. So look, again, I work in areas with, let's say, government. I work with police. I work very big with education. How many people know about EdPass? Does anyone know EdPass? Well, yeah, we should know about EdPass. We use it all the time. So that was my idea with my team. We presented that to education. And again, I'll get into that a bit more, so why that happened and how it happened. And look, many other places, and it's not just government I work with in my team. We work with mining, energy. We work in other education providers, not just Department for Education, universities, TAFEs, all over the shop, utilities, so SA Power Network. So we do a lot of work, a lot of companies, and not just in South Australia as well, around Australia as well. So that's my background. So hopefully I feel like I've got enough information and enough of a profile to be able to speak to you today about these things. So look, just again, this presentation for me, I'm going to talk a little bit about me. You've had a lot of information, so it's good to know about how I've come up through the ranks and where I've got to and how we got here. And a lot of people don't talk about the job. What is cybersecurity? How do we do this? What's involved? And a lot of my role in this industry is navigating the work life versus my personal life, because cybersecurity is everything. It's in everything. And it's important to know that the hustle and bustle, as I call it while I'm on the clock, that people call me all the time. My phone buzzes, I get emails, I get text messages, I get pop-up messages, I get the 1 minute person, have you got a minute? Have you got a minute? Have you got a minute? All that takes time. And I often find myself and wonder, how much effort do I do in a day? Do I do anything? So you need to navigate that. That's a huge part of my job every day. And I'm sure everything else, because cybersecurity, everybody wants a piece of you. Correct? Am I wrong? Am I right? I'm right? Yes. Everybody wants a piece of you because it's so important. It's so ingrained with our daily lives, not just at work, but at home, family, friends, everybody. We have an obligation. So we need to work on these things. Make sure you get a break as well. Now, cybersecurity, people ask me, what does cybersecurity mean to me? And we've heard a lot about being preventative. We've heard a lot around, being safe and all the rest of it. Yes, cybersecurity is about being safe. We are fostering safety, but it's also about empowerment, making you do something that you wouldn't normally do or feel confident about. I always say about the car with the seatbelt. Why was the seatbelt invented in a car? It was there, yes, to protect, but it was also there to make the car go fast, right? And that's important. That is empowerment. You feel confident to go faster or to go a higher speed limit within the law, but a higher speed limit to get somewhere and to do more things. That's the same with putting things out online. Yeah, that's scary. That's like walking out of your house, standing on the front of the street with a sign saying, hey, I'm available for anyone to talk to. That's important. It's about putting yourself out there in a safe way and doing things. So cybersecurity plays a massive role in that. We're not blockers. Yeah, and that's important. When I work with my customers and people in this industry, I often say, we're here to help you do what you want to do in a safe way. Another big aspect of my role is nurturing success. I'm very outcomes driven, and we need to be that. We need to have the outcome in mind. When we're working with a solution, when we're working with customers, with people, our family, our friends, that is important about being outcome driven. I have a team of people that go out and deliver. I have customers. They're part of my team. I see my customers as part of my team. I mentor them and nurture them as much as they do the same for me. And that's a big part of our job as well, because without these understanding these outcomes and making these come to a reality, and without understanding people and their requirements, we can't deliver a solution that meets everybody. We can't make them safe if we don't know what they want to do. Yeah? So important part of my job as well in the cyber industry. Now, my pathway, and sorry about the graphics, I had this, it's not my laptop, but my pathway to get here was actually a traineeship, which was unbelievable. Year 12, again, I didn't do very well at year 12. English was a second language. So this traineeship, I did it through a company called WorkSkill. I don't even know if they're still, I think they're still around. And it was a traineeship where they threw me into building computers. I was on a production line. I was literally, it was like rollers with computers, and you built them, you put everything together, plug and play, put the OS on, away you go. That was how I got into not cybersecurity, into information technology. That's what it was. It was a certificate 3 or certificate 2 back then. So I've, again, journeying all the way through from not having any clue about what this industry was to where I am now is remarkable about the pathway what a traineeship can lead you into. And again, it's amazing how you can make these smart decisions along the way about how you develop in this industry. And that's very, very important, that you're not just pigeonholed into one area. So this traineeship has certainly done me a lot of good things in my life. And I would say it's helped me understand our trainees that we get through the school-based traineeship program. Now, we've had 2 now. Well, we're on our second one. And it's one thing I've taken away from that. It's making sure you have the appropriate mentors to mentor these trainees. Yeah. We've taken 1 initially, and we've got a second one. I have technical team. They're doing deliveries. If not going to give the student an attention, then it's not worth us getting trainees, right? So we need to make sure that we've got the appropriate people support, because when I was out there, they just used me as a resource to build computers. They thought it was cheap labor back then. And that's certainly not the case now. It's great. We can get 10 trainees and away we go, build computers. But look, my pathway, I don't regret it at all. I think it's been an amazing, and again, I've explained to you what I've done through my pathway and how this traineeship has led me to where I am now. And one of the things that I ask myself, and I ask people, because people ask me, how do we get into traineeships? How do we understand how do we prepare for a job interview with a private company, not just government, in general? And I always ask myself, I look for people with the right attitude. That's what I do. Honest, reliable. I pick that skill, these soft skills, over any technical skills. We can teach students and people in general, we can teach technical skills. That's not a problem. But if you don't have the right attitude and you're not honest and you're not reliable, I can't put you in front of a customer. Yeah? I can't expect that you are going to be there on time and delivering the work that I expect you to do during the day. So these are the things that I look for, especially when I'm hiring not just a trainee, people in general. People ask me, what should I look like? Actually, not what I look like. I look like this. People ask me, what should I be looking for and researching when I'm getting into this industry? Now, again, there are multiple areas. There's programming languages, there's network, system administration, there's cloud computing, which is a big thing these days, cybersecurity itself, and there's project management and soft skills. Peter mentioned it earlier as well. The project management and soft skills are so important. if you can't speak or can't articulate to a person or an individual or treat people with respect, you won't get the same in return. If you cannot manage your time, how can you be reliable for me to go on site and do work? Yeah? So these soft skills and project management skills, now I'm not saying manage other people, manage your own time. That means you're reliable. That means you're honest. And that means you've got the right attitude because you're in it, you're involved, you want to be part of this. So these soft skills, if anything else, are so important because all this other stuff you can learn, we can teach you. But again, very much making sure that when you want to get into this industry, and again, I'm very sorry about the graphics here, but moving into how do I get into this? What are the next steps for me once I have all this information? Know your market is important. Adelaide is a very, very good market to work in cybersecurity, as well as nationally. But understand where you want to be. Do I want to be a programmer? Do I want to be a network, system administration, architect, penetration tester? Is that important to me? Know and understand what the market is available for you to do. Research this information. Because when you go into a job interview or for an interview for a traineeship or whatever it might be, we're going to ask you these questions. Now, we don't expect you to know this information, but it's valuable for us to know that you're interested. It's important. Having that interest, knowing the market, understand also us as a prospective employer. What does Peter's team do? What does my team, what does Insync do? Did you know that we do identity and access management? What does that mean? I asked a question to an adult. He said to me, you identify people and learn what they do. That was his response to me in a job interview, and that was an adult. And so that's important to know who you're applying for a job with. The other thing is offer work experience. You've got so much time on your hands to do that work experience. That's important. That's showing interest, being keen, understanding, and also it gives you a level of understanding around, do I like this? Do I want to do this? Is this actually what I want to do? So these are questions that I believe most people ask me when I go on, when they look for a job and want to get into this industry. It's very important. Oh, here we go, back into the why. So again, outcomes. I'm very outcome driven. I love it. I love knowing where I'm going and what I'm doing and what the reward is. So with Department for Education, this was the previous Chief Information Officer, Scott Bayless. We interviewed him because we won the contract for EdPass. And how EdPass started was my wife's a teacher. And I would watch her, my wife's a teacher, and I would watch her log in at least 10 times at home. So I actually filmed her doing that on a laptop, logging in about 10 times. Now imagine logging in 10 times and then doing that in a classroom setting with half a dozen students coming up saying, I don't know what my password is, I don't know this, I don't know that. Amplifying that multiple times a day, how much learning and teaching is actually happening in the classroom? So I went up to Scott and I went up to the team and I said, so I filmed my wife last night. And they said to me, what do you mean? I said, well, I filmed her logging in 10, some of you got the joke. EdPass now, I like to think EdPass makes a huge difference. It certainly does to my wife, she's very happy, so that makes my life happy. So EdPass is an outcome for me that's very, very important, and I'm very passionate about it. And this is where cybersecurity can take you. It can make you deliver these types of solutions for outcomes for people. Now, we also, I mentioned traineeship, so we actually did a school-based trainee. That's Sam. Sam has been with us for 3 years now. He just got back from an overseas trip, and he worked on the EdPass project. So he started off a trainee EdPass project and has done amazing stuff with his career. He now has a full-time job with us at Insync, in cybersecurity, and we mentored him, myself and the team. We mentored Sam, and he's doing amazingly well. And yes, he's earning a similar salary that was shown earlier today. So very lucky. So how many 21-year-olds can earn that kind of money? I don't know. I didn't. But look, it's important that, and I mentioned about the mentorship and being part of it. It's not just in the workplace. Yeah. Sam was part of cadets. We sponsored his battalion, and I loved every minute of that. And so from that, we've now managed to have a second trainee. I won't call him out. He's in the room, but he's joined us as well. And again, I want to expand on this traineeship program through schools, because it really provides a sense of ownership and giving back as well, community outreach. This is brilliant. And our children are our future. I'm starting to sound like I'm an acceptance speech, but it's so important to have these connections with bringing up, because having older people and adults coming in, it's great, but fostering the youth into cybersecurity, or raising that awareness around what cybersecurity is and how to apply that to your daily life is absolutely amazing. So that's big for me. That's big for me. There were the two main outcomes for the solution for Department for Education. Now, for me, community outreach, cybersecurity, again, I'm very passionate. There's other things I'm passionate about, but cybersecurity is huge, and it's part of our everyday lives. So there's a lot of vulnerable people out there. So I've done a lot of work personally with seniors, because I think they're one of the most vulnerable areas and people, because they just don't understand. A lot of them don't. My dad's 80 years old. Do you think I could get him to use a computer? Not at all. At smartphone at best, and even then I've got to pre-program a whole bunch of stuff. But so I've done a lot of cybersecurity awareness training for seniors, yeah, working with local members of parliament. So you know what? I couldn't just walk into a room and say, "Hi, I'm a cybersecurity expert. I want to go into and present to all these people." You don't know me, but you know the local members of parliament. So let's work with them. And that's why I did a few of them. I kept going. There's David Spears is in there. Now, I'm not affiliated with any particular government, but it's just David's a local member of my area. But we worked through all these, and we've had a lot of people come through and provide that feedback, because people are scared. And having these sessions, not just at the senior level, across, empowers people. And that's what I mean about cybersecurity. It's allowing them to feel confident to use these services. So a lot of these people have responded saying, I feel a lot more comfortable now. Yeah? I know that I need to use a longer password. I can't use a small password. How do I remember a longer password? Use a sentence. You can remember a sentence, can't you? Just don't tell anybody the sentence. So a lot of these things, and also into my hobby, cybersecurity is in my hobby. It's everywhere. I'm a massive camper, forward driver, and all these things. So I presented at a forward drive club. Yes, I have a YouTube channel called Care by Me. Feel free to check it out. But they want to talk about cybersecurity over camping. They want to know how to be cyber safe. A lot of people want to go camping and then find out that I am a cybersecurity consultant. How can I be cyber safe? You travel 100% of the time. You're retired. I'm still scared. So we help people. The last claim to fame for me is I was on Hello SA. And yep, I'm finishing up. Yep. So Hello SA. Look, that's a popular TV show. They're worried. They get people scamming them. They're acting on behalf of them. So they got me on their show to talk about how to prevent scams. They took it on board, said everybody's at risk. I'm going to leave everyone with everybody is at risk. Don't feel like you're not alone. Everybody is in the same boat. Everybody is a target. So we all have to be cyber safe. So just remember that. I'll leave that to you. So that's me. Thank you very much. Sorry I waffled on too much, but there we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Kostas. Now we have Nigel Blake from TAG, who's going to talk about cyber training.
Thanks so much, everyone. I'm just going to thank everyone, all the previous speakers, because it's really vital what was being said today. Around those human skills and soft skills are so important, and we hear this time and time again from industry. At TAFE SA, we specialise in cyber at Cert 4 level. We do have a Cert 3 level, and we have a lot of underpinning skills within that Cert 3, such as some Python programming language and some networking skills and things like that, because it's a real belief from industry that they're really important skills to have when you start specialising. We specialise at Cert 4, and just to quickly give you an understanding of our curriculum, it's divided into two parts. It's divided into core subjects and it's divided into electives. Now, we work with people like Kostas and others, with industry to understand what units that we need to teach for skills outcomes. Skills outcomes, thank you for that. There we go. Some skills outcomes for jobs, essentially. In the core subjects, a lot of things such as work in teams, critical thinking, IP ethics, really critical human skills that you need in this industry. So when I came into the program about 3 years ago, we had about 55% dropout in the cybersecurity space. So that's massive. So over half the students to start have never finished. So what we've been able to do is we reduce that dramatically by coming to events like this and espousing the message around the skills you require in cybersecurity. So yeah, we've got penetration testing with ethical hacking, and yes, we've got some Python programming and some other languages and things within that, but there is a lot around those human skills as well. So we deliver that at a certificate 4 level, and we do also recommend that you had some underpinning skills and knowledge, because the Cert 4, Cert 3 is a trade level qualification. Cert 4 starts getting up into the more advanced leadership type quals and things like that. So we do, as I said, espouse the message around those human skills are a big part of cybersecurity. We also we have a diploma which leads on. We do highly recommend a Cert 4 as pathway into the diploma for all that underpinning knowledge. The Cert 3 in IT is probably the entry level, as I've discussed. The intermediate, multiple languages, more complexity around the networks and things like that. And then diploma is very advanced. Some great news. I had a conversation today with the Department of State Development, and looking at diplomas now part of their graduate programs and things like that. Deloitte's we've met with, and diplomas are now a big part of the graduate program. So I think industries around Australia now recognising that TAFE and the kinesthetic, the doing skills, and particularly around the diploma level, gives you some really great outcomes for jobs and things like that. I'm under a bit of a time thing at the moment. I've brought some brochures and things like and some information, so I'll hang around a little bit afterwards. So if you'd like to come and have a conversation around what's involved, I've got all the units, the subjects and things like that. I can give you some more meat on the bone if you like in that respect. But we do specialise Cert 4 and diploma in cyber, but we also, just quickly, we do also do networking and cloud. TAFE's moving in a direction, so we're moving as an organisation, trialling out some desktop as a service. So now we're going to be having a lot of our stuff built up in the cloud and less reliance on the 32 gig, i7 machines that we use. We've got a security operations centre, which we, red and blue. So we do the ethical hacking, the defending and things like that. Seen some really cool stuff in Brisbane last week. We've got $150,000 Lego model built of Brisbane with all this critical infrastructure, and they red team, blue team it. And so they hacked this critical infrastructure, and they've got cranes crashing, and they've got power being cut off, and there's people trying to, and that's all around Windows, but also Linux and a whole heap of other different operating systems. So some really cool stuff happening out there. Happy to have a conversation with you afterwards. Apart from that, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Nigel. We'd now like to introduce Michael Billett up to talk a little about cyber threat intelligence and incident management.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you very much. I'm conscious I'm between drinks and nibblies, so I will keep mine brief. So I think we've mentioned a few times now about hackers and pen testers and all the fun stuff sometimes comes with cybersecurity. So that's my team. So I lead a team of threat hunters, incident responders, defenders. We also do a little bit of offensive capability work also with the Australian Cybersecurity Centre. So yeah, we're the team that wears the hoodies, that sits in the basement with no windows. But yeah, we like to turn the dial a little bit and communicate about what we do, because I think that's how we both increase the capability in the industry, but also make sure we do take our hoodies off so it doesn't appear that that's all what cybersecurity is, because it's definitely not. A little bit about me. I started out in emergency management. I worked for SA Ambulance Service, supporting the special operations team, and that's me there getting winched up into a helicopter as part of the training that we used to deliver for the special operations team. I can say now that my career in cybersecurity is more exciting than being winched up in helicopters and doing major rescues and pandemic planning. I do not regret leaving that industry. It's probably been one of the best times of my life spending in cybersecurity. It's never leave a day that I don't feel that I've contributed something to both South Australia and also contributed to the nation. It's definitely something that I'm very passionate about and something that I absolutely encourage every single person to get involved with, because cybersecurity has that added benefit where you're contributing not just to business, but individuals and also to society. And it's something that, having 2 young kids, I can know that, I'm leaving something better to them than I started. Because given that, cybersecurity wasn't even a career option when I was at school, I remember speaking to the guidance counsellor. I'm not sure if we still have those, but I should say that person wasn't exactly educated in what career pathways there would be. It was either academic or a trade. There was no such thing as a cybersecurity, even IT wasn't really sort of discussed. So having this as a career pathway is absolutely phenomenal. It teaches you so much skills along the way to understand what is critical, what's not critical, particularly in the business and government world. Government is one of the largest employers in the state. We've got up to, I think last time I counted, was about 75 different government agencies that range from West Beach Caravan Park to now a hydrogen plant. So there's far in between, and obviously Department of Education is absolutely massive. And that all needs to be protected. And so we do work quite closely with all those government agencies and their cybersecurity teams in both, protecting their environments, defending their environments, and we respond to about 300 a month. And that's only increasing every single year. But that's probably enough about me. I'm happy to chat to you guys afterwards. But in saying that, something I wanted to leave with is, I don't know, they're not showing, but anyway, QR code there goes to the I Work for SA website, the government website, and you can actually register your name and your details and what jobs you're interested in. So put in cybersecurity there, you'll get a notification if something does come up. We do, or previously have run a trainee pool and a graduate pool, which is a fantastic opportunity to get into government. I started out as a trainee many years ago, so definitely worthwhile getting involved with that. This one here, I will have to go back to my notes because I will try to reference it. Oh, that's right. There is a graduate program being supported through a non-profit that works with cybersecurity graduates to work with private industry. So it's supported by government but led by industry to get graduates supporting with them. And the last one I want to leave on is around neurodiversity in cybersecurity. I think sometimes we put individuals in a bit of a box when it comes to cybersecurity. I can tell you now some of my team are neurodiverse, and they are probably the most high performing individuals I've ever met. They have a different way of thinking and a different way of processing, but their output's absolutely phenomenal. So never be discouraged if you're in that area. I think we're all on the spectrum somewhere. I know I am, but it's definitely an area for us that we want to focus on, and we're actually working very hard for that because they don't have a lot of customer and sort of interfacing, but they're more behind the scenes, which totally fine. There's lots of skills and opportunities for everyone in this industry. So I am conscious I'm between food, so I will leave it at that, but I'm very happy to answer any questions afterwards that anyone might have. Sorry for that. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Michael. We will now take some time to see if anyone has any questions for Kostas, Nigel, or Michael.
I'll just make a comment around traineeships. We do a lot of traineeships. We've got about, it's around 70 or 80 trainees currently studying with us. We have about 1,700 students currently studying in the IT area today. So we have a lot of students, and that earn and you learn. It's a 2-year contract generally. It's 1 day a week with us at TAFE, and then the rest of the time it's unpacking the skills and contextualising your learning things within that. in the workplace. So we've worked with Michael and other teams around that sort of thing. So really great way of learning and learning.
I think last year I was asked a question about should I go to university or TAFE? Of course. That's why you're right next to me. I might just go to this one. I've been to both. When I employ people, I don't necessarily look at whether they're, you don't get higher marks for going to university, particularly when I look at your CV. I look at obviously education is an important factor because that just goes to your current journey and attitude around wanting to learn professionally within the industry. But you're not going to get scored higher if you've been to university. So when you're thinking about your career pathway and what you're going to go through, don't use that as a bit of a judgment call on which one is a better choice. That's just my personal opinion.
That you just answered my question actually, but I just want to extend upon that. When you're talking about a graduate program, is that related to it could be from Cert 4 or could it be after diploma or uni?
Diploma for us.
Diploma.
Yeah, for us it was diploma.
Okay, so the Cert 4 goes for how long? 1 day a week if you're in a training?
If you're in a traineeship for 2 years.
Yep, and then the diploma?
Don't do many diploma trainees. We have done some with VXE technologies and things like that. They usually come out of a Cert 4 traineeship into another traineeship and some high level stuff, but it'd be a similar period of time.
Okay, thank you.
In saying that, with our graduate, we did open it to Cert 4s. We are looking to do that again, which I can't confirm we are, but if we do, I'll make sure they get. We want to open it up to people.
I'll just say that our first trainee, he did a Cert 4 through TAFE. He was in a bit of a unique position. He actually did all his SACE points by the end of year 11 because he was in cadets, so he was actually able to work with us pretty much full time and do year 12 like 1 day a week at school. So yeah, and yes, he was with us for 2 years.
Just on Michael's comment around the university, we have university pathways for all our qualifications as well. So the articulation agreements with Flinders and Uni SA, soon to be Adelaide Uni. So essentially it's around a year or so off a degree. So if you wanted to keep going, I guess the big difference for us, we try and be as what we call kinesthetic. We try and do as much as we possibly can. So we've got, we've got a security operations centre and we've got lots of 32 gig computers and things like that. So we try as much as possible can we do, and then that articulates with the university so that more analytical higher or thinking type stuff.
Got a question?
Just in terms of where people live, where are the jobs going to be? The diploma, do you have to be in Adelaide for that? The traineeship and the 3,500 jobs they're going to be around? Where do you have to live?
That's a great question.
Well, I can tell you from a training perspective, you don't have to be in Adelaide. So we offer 3 modes. Two recommended modes are face-to-face and what we call virtual. So we have all their classes as streamed live at the same time. So you can come into a live class, or we have virtual classes. We have just lecturers. So synchronous, online, and we, as I said, probably 50% of what we do is in the virtual and online space. So from our perspective, you don't have to be in Adelaide in terms of jobs.
It's a bit of a mix. So, for example, if there's being made up of so many different government departments that are made all across the state, it really depends on the role and the type of role you're doing. We do have flexible arrangements, 2 days work from home, 3 or whatever the need is. But the other avenue is potentially federal government. That's also another avenue that are quite often cybersecurity specialists, and because they are spread across the country, they've probably got a little bit more flexibility around that. But noting some of the cybersecurity requirements, you probably need to be closer to where the central department is, but it really depends on the need and the type of role.
We've got time for one more question.
So we live in Victor Harbour. Tobias wants to get into the industry. Do we have to move to Adelaide?
That's a great question.
I know that we've got trainees in Mount Gambier and in Port Lincoln and some in Wales and up top there. So, from our perspective, if there's an industry there like an IT business and things like that, that we're looking at putting trainees on, there's no reason we can move to Adelaide. Absolutely not. Now, whether it's in, hard cyber security, probably not. Small problem in general IT, systems administration support type of role, it's more around a role. but most people start in a space like that anyway before they really get into that sort of space. So I'd be pursuing local opportunities with business things here, and we can train in no problems at all.
From a private company, we don't have an office. So we've never had an office. There's 20 staff, some majority here in SA, around the place. We've got people in Queensland, Sydney. Again, it determines on the project, it depends on the customer, because often the customer might say, I want someone there. But generally, most of my team work remote, servicing Australia-wide.
Thanks very much, guys. I think if there's any more questions from the floor, I invite everybody to stick around, coffee and tea, barbecue, grab some of that and seek out these guys straight after this. We're just running a little bit over time. But I'll hand back to our MCs now.
Thank you. We'd like to introduce Thomas. He's from the Department of Education, and he'd like to say a quick thank you.
All right, thank you everyone for coming along tonight. That brings us to the end of proceedings. So just to echo those sentiments, if you'd like to stick around, our guest speakers and presenters will all stick around. So if you'd like to have a one-on-one chat, I'd really like to thank everybody for coming along tonight. We appreciate your time. And on your way out, make sure you also grab a sausage and a drink as well. The students have been working hard on the barbecue all day. And tonight was actually pulled together entirely by students from Marden Senior College. And the surrounding schools. So everything from the run sheet to the invitations to the AV to the room to the catering is all being done by secondary school students. So I'd actually like to invite all the students that were involved in it to come to the front of the class. They didn't know I was doing this. Come on, and I just want to give the kids a round of applause because this was a really, really good effort. All the guys and team. So we've got a bit of a certificate for them as well. So thank you so much, guys. Yeah. But yeah, so that's a thanks. And then we'll keep you up the front for a quick little photo and a thank you. And then we'll call them on the proceedings. But yeah, how about round of one round of applause? Let's keep the crowd and see. All right. We'll just stick around there. I've got there. All right, perfect. It's 26, so there's quite a few involved. All right. So thank you so much, guys. So one last round of applause, and then thank you so much for coming along. That's the end of the
MCs, if you could trigger the feedback slide.
Yes, of course.
That one. So if you could leave some feedback for the students' event by checking that QR code, hopefully it works. And that would be awesome because they can use it in their assignments. More great. Thanks for coming, everybody.